Welcome back to the In the Deep End podcast. I'm Cosmic.
I'm Shanda.
And please watch this video for us.
There is a house built out of stone. Wooden floors, walls, and windows set. Tables and chairs.
So what do you have to say about that video?
Well, whenever I see videos like this, I always think it's so precious and so cute because kids are not born with any kind of a racial issue. You know, I was born and raised in Southern California, and it took me a very long time to realize that there was racism in our society. And when I say a long time, I mean a long time. I didn't really know that there was a difference because of how I looked until very late in life, in my 20s. Although my mom would say little things here and there, but I never really experienced it. I was never called a nigger. I was never, felt bad for being black. Yes, granted, because I was darker when I was younger, the few black people that were in the school would call me oil slick and all sorts of stuff. So I did notice it from that perspective. When we moved to where we are now in Georgia, I saw it all the time. My first experience was we were in the grocery store just shopping, and these girls, these white young ladies, they were probably 12, 13, something like that, were in there with what looked to be their grandmother. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, your dog is so cute. What's the dog's name? How old is it?" And she was telling me about the dog. And then as we walked away, I hear Grandma say when we walked away, "Didn't I tell you don't talk to them?" And we looked at each other, and it was just like one of those things that's like, that's interesting. And then just recently, we were in Ross, shopping around, just looking, and there was a white couple in front of us, and they had a little baby in the shopping cart, and the baby was all hi, and stuff like that. And I was saying, "Hi, sweetie," and talking to her, just, baby stuff. And boy, you should have saw the way that her mom and dad looked at me and kind of moved in front of the daughter to stop the daughter from talking to us. And she was peeping around like that and waving, and I continued to wave at her. And my son, Cosmic, goes, "Why do you keep talking to that baby?" And I said, "It's not the baby's fault. It's not the baby's fault. She can't help that her parents are ignorant. I'm not just going to ignore the baby. But you know what? Maybe I should have. I don't know." But what's funny is whenever you see people who act that way, most of the time they're a raggedy, you can visibly tell that they're not on the highest economic scale. But I just like to fuck around and see. So we were just messing around, and they had two lines. So I went this way, they went that way. We were both getting checked out at the same time. So we're just walking to the car all slow because I want to see what car they're getting into. So true enough, they get into this raggedy, broke down beater. The cars that you accelerate off and they go woo 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 woo. It was one of those. Okay, so I was like, why is it always the poorest of the whites that always seem to have an issue? I don't know, but I think it's so sad that they contaminate their kids with this shit.
Yeah. I don't know. This video is great, and it's, it has a positive message behind it. But, I don't really care to see stuff like this, to be honest. We all know that racism is something that's taught or developed through certain experiences. It's almost kind of like, so what? What does that do with the people who are racist? That does nothing. People, like I say all the time, they're committed to saying that they'll go as far as to say racism doesn't exist at all. So, I don't really know what to say to a video like this. But, whatever.
It's cute, and it's a reminder, I think. And that's why, yes, we all know that there's racism. Yes, we all know that racism is a part of nurture and not nature. Yes, we know that, but I think that it kind of does the heart good to see TikToks and videos like this just kind of remind us that we fuck up our kids with our own belief system and our own thoughts, and it's just really sad.
Well, that's the thing. That's why it doesn't really move me any kind of a way. Because the people who are teaching their kids racism and whatever, they don't think they're fucking their kids up. They think they're doing the right thing and they're teaching them well. So that's why I say, like, I don't see the point behind these videos, really. But, it's nice.
It is. And you know what? Let me ask you a question. When you were growing up, did you ever feel like I was teaching you some form of racism?
I mean, racism, like you should hate those people
or dislike them, or in any kind of racial connotation?
I wouldn't say that you taught me to hate or dislike people. What I will say is you taught me to be very wary of white people because of the way that they do things and how they ultimately will treat me. So I can't say that you taught me to be racist, but you definitely taught me to be cautious. And I think that's of every race, to be honest. Mexican, well, not every race. I'll say I grew up around whites, Mexicans, and blacks. So I'd say when it came to Mexicans and whites, you definitely taught me to be cautious. And a certain breed of black people.
Well, at some point in my life, I don't remember how long ago it was, but I read this article about how even though you don't teach your kid racism directly, you teach them racism indirectly. And they gave this example where there was a white woman and her daughter, she was like 8 or 9, walking down the street. There was a black man walking toward them. And the mother, clutched her purse really tight and kind of pulled the daughter over and continued to step down into the street until they passed them. Well, she's not directly saying, "Oh my God, watch out for these blackies." But what they say, what that does is that it puts a placeholder in that kid's mind that, okay, I should fear or be apprehensive of people who look like this.
Right.
So it's not a direct, like, don't, some are direct, but usually it's indirect.
Right.
So that's why I was wondering, did I do anything indirectly to, kind of put that racial thing into your head?
I don't think I had any kind of racial prejudices. Like I've said in podcasts before and videos before, I'm very versatile when it comes to wanting to get to know other cultures and what they're about and the things that they like to do or whatever. And I kind of think that you were like that as well. But there would just be these instances that would happen, or I would tell you about something. And you're basically saying, like, you it's almost like we said in one of our podcasts how we were talking about how black people have to be made aware that they're black from a young age.
Right.
So, but it never put any kind of, oh, I hate these people kind of thing. Like, I never looked at things in that way. I just kind of was like, okay, well, this is just how certain people are, or certain groups, demographics of people are. And there was a time when I thought that, like, okay, but I'm great. So I'm like, they're gonna like me regardless.
Right.
And there was truth to that, but ultimately the end result is always the same. So
Which is what?
that you'll usually be turned on in the end.
Oh,
Or that,
right.
they'll stab you in your back, or if it's you and them against the group of people who are of the same demographic as them, and there's something that you do or say or something that goes against what this group goes, they'll go along with this group.
Ultimately, they'll stick with their own group.
Ultimately, right. So it's just kind of like, I kind of was like, well, because, I rebelled against a lot of the stuff that you would say, or
and try to teach.
You, my brother, my grandma. My family they're not good with friends. It's like nobody ever had no friends. So I was like, fuck that. I'm going to have some friends.
Wow.
And so I got out there and I tried to do the friend thing. And ultimately I felt stupid in the end, because I was all like, everything that they were telling me is right. Now, a part of me feels like, and like now, it's like something I reflect on now. It's kind of like, well, is that because we don't have a history of knowing how to be friends with people? Was it something that I picked up through learning? Like, I don't really, I sat down one day and I said, I don't really know how to be someone's friend exactly. I don't know how to, because I'm not used to seeing it. I'm not used to seeing the dynamic, because nobody was friendly we're all friendly.
You mean in the family?
Yeah, in the family. On my dad's side, he has a whole bunch of friends, but that's a little different that's a bit different of a situation.
Environment is different.
The environment's different, right? So yeah, ultimately I just found myself looking stupid when it came to the whole friends thing. And yeah, there's just so many dynamics to that. But as far as the racism thing goes, did you indirectly teach me racism? You definitely taught me to be cautious of people.
And that was people in general, not just white people, but people other than. People other than.
Yeah, right.
People other than, because I just always...
And even, blacks too.
And then too, remember your friend that you couldn't go to his house because they didn't want black people in the house or something? Was that a Hispanic guy?
White.
Or what? So white person. Okay, so we had lots of different instances, me and the kids growing up, where they had white friends and were somehow shunned for one reason or another, or they didn't want them over there for some reason. And I would be so frustrated with the whole thing because the kids don't really understand. It's so frustrating because they're just kids. They're just kids. And they want to play together. But, ultimately it is taught. And I think that a lot of the time we don't even realize we're doing it. But the result is some form of racism. So seeing these kind of TikToks always warms my heart and, keeps it fresh in my mind that it's taught and it's not by nature. So,
well, that's all I have to say.
You guys, thank you so much for watching.
Bye.